to that. I need to tighten up my mic or something. I have a droopy mic. It's a common podcaster issue.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm recording. Hello, welcome to 25 Cents, an Apple Arcade podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Nick. Each episode we'll be talking about the Apple Arcade games we've played, what we keep coming back to, what we think might be great games to check out if you've got kids, and preview upcoming games.
And you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on the web at Goodstuff.fm. Hello, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm good. Episode 8 feels like we've kind of cleared some of the initial podcast hump, although 10 will be like the big round number.
Yeah, 10's the round number I think that everybody aims for, but yeah, it feels like the initial, like, is this going to go somewhere? Or are we going to keep doing it? Hump is over anyways, and now we're just waiting until the inevitable pivot to a Nintendo Switch podcast. But otherwise, we're still coming.
Yeah, people keep I've been seeing links for the $10 off Switch Lite, the Animal Crossing Switch skin. There's a lot of Switch stuff going on out there, and I'm like, no, I don't need that. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, it definitely does not. And that's like we'll just do a 2-minute Switch corner. Somebody set the timer here, but we bought Zelda and Mario Kart. So those are two games you can just go to anytime, obviously. And if there's nothing else happening, the kids go, and especially with friends over, Mario Kart comes out. But then also, like, we requested a whole bunch of games from the library, and they've been sort of slowly trickling in because we can borrow video games from the library here. And so now this week we just got Mario Party finally, which was one of the ones we kind of wanted to try earlier. And so now it's like the kids kind of sense this is like the moment where they can like pitch more screen time to the parents, because we're all kind of going to have fun together. It's not just like, some Fortnite shoot 'em up kind of game. It's like for the family. And so they've been playing that card pretty hard this last week. So hence my Grindstone.
It's right. Mario Party was one of those games where I never had a Nintendo in those eras, but all my friends did, and some of them had Mario Party, but I could never convince them to play because I think they thought it was kind of like, oh, it's a boring board game kind of game, but I always loved it.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Also,
go ahead.
Also the source of my worst video game injury. I gave myself a massive blister doing one of the mini games.
That's awesome.
I think on some friend's Nintendo 64.
Yeah. Injury being a relative term, but to video games. But yes.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to switch your camera? You're falling off the screen when I'm split screen. So I think to your left, maybe.
Let me see.
Not a big deal for the 5 folks that watch the video, but
is that a little better?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's mounted into your laptop, right? So it's a little harder.
Yeah, for this
adjust. Yeah, that's fine. All right. So last week we decided to play Grindstone, and I don't really know how to describe it exactly. I was trying to do that a little bit on the stream beforehand in terms of what kind of game it is. It's kind of like you've referenced like Bejeweled and sort of a matching game, like where things fall down and you kind of have to match them. But it's also this kind of weird, like you're going through it in a pattern or an order that you decide to go through, and that affects the gameplay, obviously, just much like any other game where things fall as you remove them from the board effectively. But it's all sort of covered in a skin of an old warrior guy trying to like fight his way to the top of a mountain, hence the grindstone, I guess, and collect grindstones along the way. And so for me, again, Mario Party asterisks issue with my time aside, what I loved about this game is it's again another game that's really colorful, really visually appealing and interesting to look at, and animations and things that are just like lots of fun. My character, when he's down to 1 heart, looks like exhausted, tired, like he's had this heavy workout and he can barely like hold his sword up and things like that. And yeah, all sorts of fun animations as he goes around swiping these zombie, whatever, alien guys in the game when you send them on an attack. and visually or audibly, sorry, also really fun and interesting as well. To the point of, again, like many of these games for me, it's a question of can I actually turn the sound on, because as soon as I do, the game is going to attract three other humans who want to also steal it from me. And so I'll confess I've gone through, I think on the stream there I was like fifth episode, something like that, or not episode, too much podcasting, fifth or fourth level of the first sort of bigger level, I guess, or whatever. And you can shed more light on it because you've been playing this game for a little longer than I have. So what's your thoughts? You've some thoughts.
So I think this was one of the launch games, and it immediately jumped out at me as like, oh, this is going to be kind of a mobile puzzle game that I'll really like. It's like a nearly perfect mobile game, right? Because there's no timers. There's a lot of interesting variations between the levels. So the way the levels work is each level you have to open a door. The condition to open the door is different by level. And then the levels are in groups of 15, sort of, at the end of which there's sort of every 15th level is sort of a special boss that has some different unlocks. And there's a theme where they introduce, new kinds of obstacles or new kinds of monsters that interact in different ways. So later in the game, there's acid pits, trapdoors you have to activate, little caves that bats will fly out of and try to hit you, and spear throwers, various variations on the same core mechanic of chaining as many colors as you can. And to the sound point, I think it's if you get maybe more than 15 or more than 20 critters in a chain, he kind of he goes like, "Ah," and the music picks up and it's like this swelling, like super fast attack, and he speeds up the animation. Like it's very exciting. And each level takes, depending on the level, 5 or maybe 10 minutes, depending on how many of the unlocks you go for. In addition to clearing the door, you can there's a guy with a crown who shows up, and a treasure box. And if you unlock both of those, you get more bonus items. And then there's, I don't know, have you gotten into the sort of between level stuff that happens in the inn yet?
No, I think that had just appeared when I was just playing now. I saw like the inn was an option to go to, but I haven't dived into that part at all yet.
Yeah, so there's some light RPG elements. So in the inn, you can spend grindstones to recharge your health if you've lost a level or gotten some hits during a level. But you also, as you collect all these different items, you can use them to craft new weapons and new armor, weapons, shields, and armor. And so you can, between any level, you can go to the inn, and once you've crafted one of those items, you can change your loadout on any given level. There's 3 slots, so you can start to get into kind of the strategy of, this weapons bonus is really useful on this kind of level, or this particular shield is really useful. I tended to keep the loadout pretty much the same once I had unlocked certain items. I kept, I think, jump potion, spiky shield, and regular shield. And I wasn't really using any of the special weapons. And so that lets you do things like, well, I can end my grind next to a critter who's on fire and not take damage for that turn. So there's a lot of that kind of strategy that I really enjoyed, of not just can I do the best chain, but in this level I have these resources to use. Can I get through it without taking too much damage, or even in some cases take a point of damage because this turn I really need to complete this bonus, and then I'll still be okay to complete the level.
Right. And is it how many levels would you say, or like how far into the game would you be roughly, like either in minutes or levels or whatever kind of progression makes the most sense?
Before you start getting into that element?
Well, just in general, like I'm sort of wondering, like the long term, does it get kind of like the mechanics of the game seem to stay generally the same, but they kind of add little extras to each kind of level or style or style of level. But the core of it is obviously the same game over and over, the sort of puzzle that you're trying to unlock and get through the level. Is that it? Obviously doesn't, from the sounds of it, doesn't get boring to you. You're not like tired of it because presumably you've kept playing it.
Yes, yeah, I have. I've beaten all 150 levels now. I haven't collected all 3 bonuses in all the levels, but I'll probably go back and do that.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's, I know there are a couple of other big tech podcasters out there who keep talking about threes, many, many years later. They keep going back to it. And I think this has the potential to be one of those kind of games where even clearing all the levels, the core mechanic is, to me, exactly the kind of like casual, relaxing mobile puzzle game that I want. So it is the boss levels that come every 15 do have some variations. Like you have to do something like maybe kick a bomb or activate a trapdoor when the boss is standing on it, kind of thing.
Right.
So there's some variation there. You're not just doing the chain, but the core is still you're doing those chains to clear things.
Yeah, actually, that threes is a really good comparison to the sort of like the whatever the dopamine hit maybe that this kind of game hits for you, like as it's the mechanics, like I said, doesn't change, but the sort of puzzle unlocking better combinations and how high can you get and all that kind of stuff is like a fun thing to go back to and could certainly see in terms of like our would you finish it game or would you finish it rating, I guess, for this game is you said you'd gotten through all 150 levels and there's still an interest in going back, and I think that to me too is like a good measure of like how fun this game is that you would want to go back and keep unlocking it. Obviously, if you hate that kind of game style, then this isn't for you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is very much just my style of mobile game generally. I mean, I think if I look at my game folders on my phone going way back, it's more of this style of puzzle game. I think one of my very first App Store purchases was the old Trism, which was a game similar to this. You're sliding little like triangles around and matching colors. I think the thing that is interesting to me and why I brought up threes in comparison is there's no timer.
Yeah.
You can look at and kind of plot out your move for kind of as long as you want. Obviously, depending on the current board setup, there's only so much you can do, but that is a nice element that I really like. And the flip side of that is with the levels, the longer you stay on the level, the more dangerous it gets, which I think is an interesting mechanic. I don't know if you've run into that yet.
Yeah, the sort of like the attacky guys or whatever, the mad guys who are going to attack you if you land near them, kind of get more angrier and animated, obviously, like visually, but obviously they're more animated in their anger. And it's kind of this, like, there is that pressure in terms of the bigger picture of the game, of that particular level, but not like the urgency, like you have to decide right now what to do, that I definitely appreciate. Like, so if you're playing it, an interruption comes up, you have to go leave the game for a while or whatever, you're not like lost to whatever the level is and you have to start all over again kind of thing, which is, I appreciate too.
Right.
And I want to touch on something you just said, like in your description of it, like a nearly perfect mobile game. And I think that's an interesting one to unpack a little bit, I guess, just in terms of, and you alluded to how it's kind of like a perfect game for you too, for your style of gaming. And I think it's why something like a Bejeweled, which is similar in mechanic to this game, is so popular, so insanely popular, and variations like that, because it is just, you can very easily pick this up. I mean, you might get a few looks if your sound is on and you're standing in the grocery store line, I guess, and playing a level of this versus something like Bejeweled. But definitely with the sound off, it's easy enough just to like pick away at a little bit of it. And when it's your turn to pay for your groceries or at the DMV or wherever you happen to be, it's an easy one just to like put away and not have to like mentally store anything in your brain about the game. And jump back into when you have a chance again later. So,
yeah, I guess when I say mobile, what I'm referring to is that kind of snackable gameplay. Like you don't have to start playing with the expectation that you're going to have to do a session, right? It's very drop in. Each piece that you want to complete is generally going to be a short couple of minutes to several minutes, and then you can stop again. So it's that style of game. In terms of people shoulder surfing, I will say, with, like you said, with the sound, it's definitely a slightly gory, squelchy kind of game because you're chopping up these little critters. So I have not let my 6-year-old watch me play this one. It's, like I said, it's mostly been a bus activity. So he, I think it's a little, I mean, everything's turning into like little animated, cutely animated meat chunks.
Yeah.
so, so I think for now at least I would consider that a little on the young side for
Yeah.
him.
It reminded me of there's a I forget what the game is called now. It's like Meat something, Meat Boy, Super Meat Boy, where like you're basically
Yes.
a piece of meat trying to make it through a factory essentially and not get splattered by the blades and etc. And like the animation style is similar to that, and even sort of like the frenetic action that goes on when once you do your move. And yet, yeah, it's like it's very cartoony, but also I was like, oh, my 7-year-old too. Like if I was showing this to her, she might be like grossed out by it, or have like, even though it's very minimal. It's not. I wouldn't call it a gory game by any measure, but yeah, it does have a few little graphical and sound cues that, if the right or wrong
Yeah.
imagination got a hold of, I guess could
Yeah.
stick. So
Well, so one thing that happened maybe a month or so ago, they did a game update where at the end of the level, if you've beaten the critter with the crown, you're supposed to tap on him several times at the end of the level to like knock him out, cut him up, take the crown, right? But they added a skip button, and if you hit that, you get a kiss sound effect, and he disappears in a little puff of smoke with a heart.
oh, interesting.
So I don't know if that was, people felt bad, like
Yeah,
smashing the guy or what.
because it does kind of, when you think about it, he kind of comes off as your guy, your character, the warrior guy. It kind of comes off as like a brutish, bully, almost like going through and smashing and stomping all these little little colorful things that
Some of them are almost a little cute, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, they're sometimes angry and on fire or whatever, but
yeah.
or armed.
We need a support group for what are the things called that you're killing and smashing and whatever? Are they like aliens, or what is it? I forget what the mechanic is.
Uh, I was
It's
calling them critters, but now
yeah.
I don't recall.
Anyway, maybe at the end of the stream here, if I have time, I'll play a little longer, play a little more of it, so we can open up. So in terms of the finishing, I think we both have said. I mean, you have finished, I guess, so that answers that question. I can see myself going back to wanting to finish it over. I'm not in a hurry to do it, but over time, anyways.
Right.
And then replayability, I feel like too. You had mentioned briefly, sort of like there is a bit of that where you can go back and figure out better ways, and also like getting more awards that you didn't get the first time. So I don't know if that's replaying or going back to finish it still, depending on how you quantify that, I guess, in your mind, with whether you can check it off as finished, even if you don't get every single reward or whatever. But it definitely has a bit of that replayability, just like threes would, or similar games where you can go back and just get a higher score, even though you've beat the level or beat the entire
Right.
game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not quite an endless game like a threes where it's sort of the same thing and you go as far as you can because each level, has a specific thing you can beat. But I'd be curious, maybe they'll add levels later. And then, yeah, I mean, and also it took me, what, I guess basically 4 months to slowly, casually play through it and actually beat all the levels. And there were a couple of levels where I was really stuck, or I didn't realize what the trick was as they introduced new mechanics. So it
Right.
took me a few tries.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's nice. It doesn't kick you back far or whatever in the game, as far as what I've seen so far, anyways. If you mess up on a level, your guy dies, you just start that level over again, right? Or is there anything later on that kind of punishes you more for not getting
Yeah,
it right?
yeah, you start the level over. And early on, I had sort of grindstone supply problems in terms of, being certain I could like replenish my rechargeable weapons and health between levels. But once I was a couple of worlds in, I was always earning enough grindstones to, have the opportunity to have several tries on any given level without running out of supplies.
Right. Yeah. Cool. All right. So that's Grindstone, and yeah, we'll be. It does feel like a fun one. Like I said before, I started the stream early today just for the recording, and it's actually a fun one to like play on a stream. I think because if there was people watching along and giving you feedback on what you're doing or whatever, it's also a visually really interesting game to watch, and you can pop in and out of too, and we'll maybe try and do that a little bit every so often here on the stream. But
Yeah.
and normally we'd have Kids Corner, but I thought we'd skip that and maybe add in a little Apple TV Corner, which is an ongoing discussion here on the show of wondering and waiting for some sort of new Apple TV on the horizon, because it has been a little while. And so you spotted or heard rumor, I guess, of some new hardware that might be coming soon. I don't know if you want to summarize the.
Yeah. Yeah. So the iOS 13.4 betas came out for developer access, and that includes, of course, iPadOS, tvOS, watchOS. And there's people now who dig into these the libraries that come with the OS and look for strings and clues, and they find things like little tiny drawings of device images that will be used in the finder to indicate what's plugged in and be like, aha, new phone, or that sort of thing. But what they found was a code for a supported TV device that is not known. So the assumption is that must mean that they are starting to test this software on some new hardware internally.
Yeah, it looks like nothing in terms of bigger, better processor as far as what they're tying this hardware to, and the A10 Fusion chip that's in the current Apple TV 4K maximum resolution likely would still remain at 4K, which, I mean, that's lots for most of us, I think.
Yes.
HDR support, and then so I mean, I don't know. There isn't anything really that it needs to have. I think the biggest thing holding, I don't know about you, and maybe I'm just cheap, but the biggest thing holding the Apple TV back, I feel like, is you talk to anybody who's like straddles the world of Apple and the regular world of Chrome and Windows and whatever, and it's too expensive compared to a Chromecast or Amazon Fire related devices, and so it's just kind of like, why would I bother spending that much money on a thing that locks me into Apple and their ecosystem when I could get this other thing that works across browsers and all sorts of stuff. It's just a hard sell. Like a nonprofit I'm helping with, they need a presenter kind of device or whatever in one of their lecture rooms, and I could probably fight for like an Apple TV to be there, but then 6 months down the road, someone comes in with their Windows box and they want to send a stream to that and use it as off the projector. Well, you have to manually like connect to the projector instead of using the Wi-Fi.
There's no AirPlay for anybody else.
Yeah. And that's a whole other issue besides the gaming stuff that we're touching on here, obviously. But at $200, or I'm not sure what it is in the States exactly, but it's double, triple, quadruple even the price of some of the other streaming things that give you the ability to do a lot of what it is, and it's a nice Apple thing. But yeah, so because I know for me, if it was $100 for sure, I would have one by now. If it was even $150, probably Canadian, I'm speaking, so US dollars, that might be a little less, but
a little less.
Yeah, I would probably have one by now of the current model, but it's just kind of like to justify it, even with Apple Arcade, is still a bit high for me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of where I'm holding off is, and if it is still very expensive, I think I would stick to, like we said last time, maybe thinking about something down the road for a Catalina Mac that becomes the platform for playing the sort of controller-based games. Because like when we played Inmost and Lego Brawls, I was using the controller, but I was using it on a tiny screen, and that was definitely a mismatch. Like it really feels like it needs that device hooked up to a big screen. And so, yeah, there's something about the way, and maybe it's just a timelines thing, like there's been a lot of discussion about how Apple being on this annual cadence of phone hardware as their largest driver is kind of messing with their ability to deliver other things in sync. And so, they wanted to make 2019 the year of services, so they are launching Apple TV Plus and Apple Arcade, but the other timelines for the other components, like new Apple TV hardware, weren't lined up for whatever reason.
Right.
And, probably team availability. Probably team availability. And now, it'll trickle out maybe over the course of this year. So I'll certainly consider it depending on price.
Yeah, I think $179 US is the entry level Apple TV, 32 gig one, it looks like, at least on apple.com. Yeah, because it kind of gets into that, like, I could buy an Apple TV, or I could save a bit more or whatever, budget a bit more, and have like a nice iPad that is also effectively a bigger screen for some of the game stuff, but also, like portability and things like that. So anyways, that's where I know there's like the Apple tech world that kind of just buys the latest whatever that Apple puts out and happily reports on it, which is a fun world to live in. But the rest of us in the real world, where it's like we have like a certain budget for gaming or devices in general, right. And I can't just go crazy on all the things. Even though as I look downstairs and think, why do we have a Switch and an Xbox?
Yeah.
I'm becoming that.
Well, I
We're becoming
mean,
that
you
family, but
accumulate them over time. It's a little
yeah,
different than getting the thing that's incrementally better every single year.
yeah, yeah. So, but I'm excited to see what they do. I just hope, I just hope it isn't slightly better hardware to justify the same price point. I think would be a mistake. That in the long run, I feel like is, and obviously there's plenty of people, whatever, the punditing about Apple over on the web, no shortage
Right.
of that. But I just feel like there is a missed opportunity to hit a little lower price point and get into more homes. I think would serve them well, just especially now with Apple TV Plus and Apple Arcade and that whole package that you can use that box to basically sell those services with. So
Right. And I think they'll have to kind of maybe rethink their storage of size and pricing because, like you mentioned on a previous episode, some of these games are weighing in at a gig or two, and you wouldn't really want to be in a situation where you get that entry level Apple TV. It's 32 gigs. There's some system space, a couple of videos, and now you're looking at, oh, I can have maybe 10 games installed at once, maybe 15. So that wouldn't be a very good Apple Arcade experience, even though it's trivial to, download and
re-download, yeah.
reinstall them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. The Switch, I think, is a 32 gig device, and it's kind of a funny one where, or 64, I can't remember now, but it does allow for like an external SD card, or yeah, SD card, I think is what, mini SD or whatever it is, that you can plug in for extra storage, so you can have games that you download because you can buy them in the cloud, obviously, or still the little mini arcade, um, mini, I want to say disc, but it's now like just a tiny little cartridge basically that you use on
Right.
the Switch. But Apple doesn't have that, presumably, or at least I don't think they have any sort of external storage options for that. And so for the Apple TV, but they've never really been clear on why someone, because they have a 32 gig and a 64 gig. They've never really been clear up until the arcade, I guess, why you'd want 64 instead of 32 gigs of storage. And so that maybe becomes a little clearer. But yeah, sit down to watch a movie and you go to play it and there isn't enough space because your kids downloaded Minecraft or whatever games on the Apple Arcade. And it doesn't make for a fun family experience, or vice
Right.
versa. You're trying to play a game that, I know it's taken up by caches of movies that presumably it deletes for you. But anyways,
Yeah. I wonder too if they do a controller bundle, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah. All right. I think we can probably, that's the summary of every Apple TV discussion. Is like, we'll just have to wait and see because nobody
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah.
They don't. It's not like it's fun in the video game world where, like, eventually I hope Apple gets to the point with Apple TV and arcade related stuff where they're like at E3 or something or whatever. Like, when Nintendo and Microsoft are promoting Xbox One X R3 or whatever, and Sony has their PlayStation 5 they're talking about, and Apple is like, hey, here's our Apple TV 4 or 5K or whatever, and reasons why you might want to wait and buy it instead of the other competition. But we're a little ways away from that, I think. So
Yep.
for next time, the game we're going to play, I'm going to keep playing Grindstone. But one of the games we talked about previously that we're going to put on our list for next episode, anyways, is called Pilgrims, and it's this. Well, I'll just read the description. It's a playful adventure game created by the team behind Machinarium and Samarost. I think I'm saying that right. Roam the land as you please, make new friends, share a laugh with your fellow travelers, and help them complete their little stories your way. How many different solutions can you find? So, it looks visually. I haven't seen video of it, trailers or whatever yet myself. But visually, it looks really interesting and really fun to play. Nice sort of animation, hand-drawn animation style, and then the sort of puzzling, I would guess, of like Machinarium and things like that. So, any thoughts before we head off into the world of Pilgrims?
Yeah, so I tried it briefly and played like a couple of the puzzles before kind of setting it aside because I got stuck on one and then just never revisited. But now I have a new motivation to try and get a little farther in it. It's like any sort of classic point and click adventure game. I think the difference is like you're kind of the way you manage your inventory is a little different, and we can dive into that after we play some more. I haven't touched it now in a couple months.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's looks like fun, and so we'll touch on that for next episode. So play along at home if you want, and also let us know if you've got. Do you have an Apple TV? Are you playing Apple Arcade on your Apple TV ever? How is that working? and or are you holding out for an Apple TV upgrade like we are, you can send us a tweet at. Sorry, I'm getting notifications. Lunch plans are being made in my
I see.
notifications feed here. Okay, where was I here? Yeah. Send us a tweet at 25C arcade. 25 cents, I think. Is that? Yeah. Twitter.com/25C arcade is where you can send us a tweet. Let us know how you're making out with Apple Arcade. What are your faves? What are some games we should cover in the future that you've really dug into that we haven't touched on yet? And yeah. But in the meantime, thanks for listening to 25 Cents, our Apple Arcade podcast. You can find me on Twitter. I'm iChris.
And you can find me on Twitter and most everywhere else as Ultra Nerd. That's NURD.
And you can find 25 Cents wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, be sure to check out our Patreon, Goodstuff.fm/Patreon or Patreon.com/Goodstuff. Either one will work. And join us there if you want to access our Discord, our Minecraft server, which that's something that's not on Apple Arcade, unfortunately, is Minecraft. But I don't see that ever happening unless Apple pays millions and millions of dollars to Microsoft to hand that over. But
seems unlikely, yes.
Yeah. And also our Twitch channel, which is the main place we live stream usually. Twitch.tv/GSFM is where we live stream. You can sign up to be notified when we go live for the show, but also other stuff that we happen to stream from time to time, including trying out some Apple Arcade games periodically. So thanks for listening. Hope you have a great day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. I think I actually had the sound working this time properly. Yes, lunch plans that were for 1 o'clock now are being asked to be bumped up earlier, which is just in the neighborhood here, so it's not a big deal. But
yeah, because of my dietary choices, I usually get people to start getting lunch together and be like, "Oh, were you wanting to come?" Because like it limits where everybody can go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh shoot! Right. If we go there, you die. Oh, did you want to?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing.
There's a lot of options at a lot of places. Just being vegan.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of options in Seattle. It's not that hard, but a lot of my coworkers like the sort of the like Chinese or Indian food trucks, and a lot of them have no options.
Right. Yeah.
Also, it's like $15 a lunch, so I'm just apparently cheap that way.
I'm with you. Yeah. Yeah. That's like 15 US is like that's like $20 Canadian. That's not a cheap lunch. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's the fast lunch.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm more in the 10, like 15 would be like as much, although I'm thinking of where we might be going right now for lunch, and it's probably going to be $15 a person, but Canadian, I guess. So, yeah. Yeah, we're
still.
Cool.
Right, I'm sending the file over to myself, so I'll drop that in Dropbox shortly.
Okay. Thanks to anybody out there if you happen to be watching. Thanks for tuning in on the live stream, and this. If you're just catching this now, it'll be on the Good Stuff YouTube channel, the video version, and I'll replay it on Twitch. I think I can do that. Replay it again once more today, so be sure to follow or like or whatever. And if you're on the Twitch thing, you can give us your Prime donation. Just don't, whatever. There's so many.
I just re-upped mine for February.
It's a funny mechanic, system that they use, but that's what it is. And yeah. Thanks, Nick. I'm going to turn off the stream now. So see you, folks.
All right.